Splatoon 3 Salmon Run has got to be one of the most entertaining things you can do in the game right now. Able to be played 24 hours a day, you can always have a good time with friends and randoms alike while dealing with wave after wave of salmonids. Of course, the big boy Chohozuna can be a bit stingy with his rewards sometimes, making you feel like you're working an actual miserable part-time job, but that's just one flaw in the run. What really makes Salmon Run what it is the salmon themselves, and as you know, some are more difficult to deal with than others. So today, I'm going to be ranking all the Splatoon 3 salmonids to find out which salmon is the worst in the run. Of course, if you guys enjoy this video and you want to see more of this kind of content, do me a favor and hit that like button, as well as hitting that subscribe button on the channel, as it helps out a ton, and we're getting really close to 3,000 subscribers. Let's begin with our good old tier list. And now you might be wondering, what are we going to be ranking our salmonid tier list? I already said we're going to find out which salmonid is the worst in the run. But that's not entirely true. You see, I'm going to be ranking these salmonids on how annoying they really are to deal with in Salmon Run, and which ones are run killers and which ones are not run killers. And kind of starting right off the bat, you can see we have a couple nice little tiers here. We have the F you tier, which is going to be reserved for one or two specific salmonids, and I think everybody who's watching this video knows exactly which two are going on that list. Following that, of course, we have our annoying tier, which are salmon that can constantly be kind of a pain in the ass. We have the best watch your back tier, which is if you let this salmon group up, they're going to tear you apart limb from limb. We have the potential problems tier, which is salmon that also kind of has a similar problem to the best watch your back tier, where if there's too many of them and you're not prepared for it, you're going to run into some trouble. And then, of course, our final tier for today, we have the free tier, which is literally the easiest salmon in the entire run. So starting off, we have, of course, the Drizzler. Now, the Drizzler is one of those interesting salmon, because while the Drizzler on its own is not that bad to defeat, what really makes the Drizzler a problem is the fact that the Drizzlers have these rain clouds. Not a lot of people take advantage of being able to instantly kill the Drizzler by shooting its rain cloud back. Yes, does that rain cloud get blocked by a lot of other enemies in time? Yes, it does if there's a lot of salmon on the screen, but the people who don't deal with the cloud are going to end up getting ink stormed, and I will say right now, I think having ink storm is probably one of the biggest issues, specifically in Salmon Run, especially if there's a large buildup of salmon. Any amount of chip damage is really dangerous, so honestly, I think the Drizzler, while it isn't the hardest to defeat, is definitely going to be a potential problem if you let that move into, of course, positioning, and you don't deal with its rain clouds effectively. Of course, the next salmon we have on our list is going to be the Scrapper. Now, the Scrapper, I'm just going to be honest here, the Scrapper is absolutely free. You honestly just have to stop it from moving. You don't need a really powerful weapon to do it. You can throw bombs at it to stop it from moving, and all you have to do is get behind it. The most annoying thing about the Scrapper is I believe they are a 3-hit kill if they bump you 3 times, and they're usually surrounded by a lot of other salmon, making them kind of harder to spot, especially when you hear the Mario Kart revving towards you. Dying to a Scrapper always feels bad, but honestly, they're not too difficult to deal with. Another one that's not really too difficult to deal with that we can move right on right away is, of course, the Fish Stick. Now, honestly, the Fish Stick for me is not really a problem salmonid. This Fish Stick is a free salmonid. You just gotta get the right weapon climbing to the top, or you just gotta get a blaster and you can shoot the Fish Stick from below. I really like the Fish Stick. I really like their music, because you can hear it from like halfway across the room, and it can make you either really happy or really depressed at the same time, you know, depending on how you're working in the run. But the Fish Stick, pretty easy to deal with. Definitely a free salmon, not a problem at all. Of course, joining them in this tier, once again, we have one of the new salmons, the Flipper Flopper. Now, I don't think the Flipper Flopper is a problem in its own right. I think the Flipper Flopper right off the bat is even less annoying than the Fish Stick. So the Flipper Flopper, again, probably one of the easiest salmon to deal with. If you guys are familiar with the Splat Zones mode, that is exactly what the Flipper Flopper is. While the Flipper Flopper can create some problems by putting a wide zone of ink around your feet, and if you're, there's not a lot of ink around you, or you're running low on ink, you will get trapped in the Flipper Flopper, and the Flipper Flopper can instantly kill you. But as long as you know, hey, I gotta paint all of its area, couple bombs will do it. Good shooting weapons like the arrow spray, believe it or not, in Salmon Run will help you do it. Flipper Flopper, really easy to deal with, not much of a threat. But now we get into something a little bit more interesting. We have the Salmon Lid. I love saying the Salmon Lid. I don't know why. I think the Salmon Lid is really cool, but I would not call the Salmon Lid a free salmon. We are actually going to end up putting the Salmon Lid in potential problems above the Drizzler. The Salmon Lid is easy to kill. Absolutely. The Salmon Lid is one of the easier ones to get on top of. You just got to get under its shield and then, of course, jump on top of it to kill it. You can drop the Salmon Lid on other salmonids, making it really good for killing other bosses, which is very effective if you put yourself in the right spot. And unfortunately, if you do stay on top of that Salmon Lid long enough, it will pull out a soup ladle and knock you off, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you can actually jump over. I have not tried that, but you can essentially stay on the Salmon Lid forever. The biggest problem with the Salmon Lid, though, comes from its actual barrier. That barrier is a shield. No ink can pass through it, bombs will explode on contact with it, and the Salmon Lid can be put in some really annoying positions, protecting some of the more difficult salmonids to deal with, such as steelheads, or even stingers, or, God forbid, the fly fish. The Salmon Lid is a potential problem if it covers any of these, because you cannot hit the salmon that are under it until you intentionally make the Salmon Lid drop. So while I do think the Salmon Lid is pretty easy to kill, it is more of just a potential problem and kind of more of a nuisance than anything else. Pretty easy to deal with, but still more annoying than the Drizzler. Now we get to, I think, one of the more higher tiered salmonids of this video, the Big Shot. God, I hate these things. And it's really hard for me to determine whether it's an A or whether it's a B. Because the thing with the Big Shot that you have to know is that once that Big Shot cannon comes out, you are guaranteed to have more than one Big Shot in that wave. They can come out in multiples on the same cannon, or they can come out one early, one later in the wave, then another one later in the wave, and so on and so forth. Only one Big Shot cannon can be present at any time, but the positioning of the Big Shot always seems to be set throughout the maps, which is beneficial. However, those Big Shot cannons, as you know, will always go toward the center of the basket, making you deal with wave breakers. That's a problem in its own right, because you're not only having to force yourself to jump while dealing with other salmonids, but usually those Big Shot cannons are in a far away position. I would say if you don't see the Big Shot cannon, you're going to be in trouble, and they'll definitely be more annoying to deal with. But honestly, I think this is kind of more of a B-tier salmon. You definitely have to watch your back with the Big Shots here. They are absolutely painful to deal with, and you really have to be careful. Next, of course, we have our Goldie here. And now Goldie, obviously, you would think I'm going to throw that right into the free tier. Now, while I do think Goldie in Fog is rather free, where the Goldie really becomes a problem is with one of the events currently in Splatoon 3 Salmon Run Next Wave, which I'm sure a lot of us are familiar with from Splatoon 2's Salmon Run, but it's been ramped up a little bit in Splatoon 3 Salmon Run, and that event, of course, is Glowflies. Glowflies are brutal in Splatoon 3 Salmon Run. You are dealing with constantly charging Chum at you. They are a problem to deal with. They can become a potential problem if you don't have the right weapon set. And to top it all off, they're so frenzied, and the Goldies are the only way to get golden eggs during the Glowflies wave. However, I don't think they're better than the Drizzlers. I am going to put them in potential problems, but only during the Glowfly wave. They are not free by any means, unless you're dealing with them in Fog, where they're just, you know, are like a normal boss salmon, where you want to bring them a little bit closer to the basket, see if you get that 10 egg drop, free win. Nice, easy that way. But definitely during Glowflies, gonna be a problem. But they're almost at the free tier, but not quite. Next, we have the Grillers, and the Grillers, I'm immediately gonna just say right here, they are worse than the Big Shot, but you best watch your back dealing with the Grillers. This is one of the few salmon in the game. There's boss salmon in the game, and that can instantly kill you. The biggest problem with Grillers is just space management, paint management. Where does your team have to stand to deal effectively with the Grillers while they are sending an army of small fries at you after you open them up and, you know, have to deal with them there? They are definitely a problem in groups if you're not, you know, aware where each grill is coming from. Granted, you can see them with the laser, but it depends on the player. And I've seen players who have failed on Griller Wave. I've seen a lot of players who have succeeded on Griller Wave. They can be a problem if the team has no idea what they're doing. Usually higher up in Salmon Run, you don't have too much of an issue. But you still gotta watch your back around the Grillers, because once one of you goes down, the game changes quite a bit. Once those Grillers change targets and they start moving around in random directions. Moving on here, we have the Mothership and its little companion as well, the Crate Droppers, and honestly, I don't think these guys need any explanation. Mothership is an exclusive event, and these guys are just absolutely free to deal with. Mothership is at the very bottom. I don't know a single team in Splatoon 3 that has failed a Mothership wave. Could the Mothership give you some potential problems if no one's paying attention to when the Mothership's moving in? That dialogue box is very important when Mr. Grizz said that Mothership's moving in. If no one's paying attention to that, Mothership can steal your eggs. Yes, but with the amount of crates that the Mothership drops here in Splatoon 3 Salmon Run, it's really easy to get quota. I don't really know a single team that will fail on a Mothership wave. If you fail on a Mothership wave, I feel like you're not as good at Splatoon 3 as you think you are, so don't fail on a Mothership wave. They're free. Next, we have the Chum. Now, I'm not going to put Chum in free. Now, you might notice that I have on this list, I have some of the normal salmon. Just some of the normal salmon on here. Yeah, normal salmon. Kind of a pain in the ass, but the Chum, they have potential problems. And you know what? I'm actually going to move the Chum up here to best watch your back. Below the griller, but above the Salmon lid. While the Chum are abundant and they die really quickly, again, the biggest issue with Chum is their numbers. Their numbers on the Chum can be absolutely devastating, and as I already stated with Goldie, glowflies make these guys brutal. I mean, really, if you do not have a dynamo roller during a glowfly wave, these Chum will tear you limb from limb in a matter of seconds. You gotta watch your back with these guys. They are a 3-hit kill. Be careful, especially during glowflies. Honestly, they're not that bad to deal with, but you gotta watch your back specifically during the glowfly event, or they will mess you up. Next, we have a new event-specific salmon known as the Mudmouth. Now, I honestly think the Mudmouth is free. I don't think it's as free as the Flipper Flopper. However, I do think it is above the Mothership here in this regard. Mudmouth is an exclusive event that can only happen at night in Splatoon 3, and the way to beat the Mudmouths is, of course, by throwing bombs in their mouth. There are other weapons that can do damage to them by throwing bombs in their mouth. The Explosher can also deal damage to them by putting a bomb in their mouth. So they're relatively easy to deal with, and I believe it's 3 bombs to take out a normal one, 5 bombs to take out a gold one. It's a relatively free wave, and as long as you can manage to deal with the other salmon properly, the Mudmouths really aren't that big of a deal. I think they're relatively easy. They're not hard to deal with at all. Really cool event. I really like the Mudmouth event. The first time I saw it was really neat, and obviously everybody from before the patch dropped has all these clips of the Mudmouths going woo all over the map, so that was pretty entertaining to see. Next we have the Small Fry, and honestly I'm gonna say something right now to everybody. The Small Fry are Satan. They are little ankle biters that will stop at nothing to beat you to death with a spoon, and because of that I'm putting them in the annoying tier. I absolutely despise the Small Fry. Are they easy to kill? Yes. Are they really hard to see when there's a bunch of salmon around you? Yes. Are there an abundance of them, and they seem to not give you iframes after you get hit anymore in Splatoon 3, making an army of Small Fry the worst thing you could possibly see. Do grillers make them troublesome? Absolutely they do, because they send out an army of Small Fry. If you've got a charger, good luck! These little ankle biters are going to ruin your day. Small Fry, Satan, annoying, end of story. Alright, so now that that rant's out of the way, we can talk about the Kochuck, or the Kohawk? Or the Kochuck? I always call them Kochucks, but I think they're Kohawks. Honestly, the Kohawks, I'm going to put in the potential problems tier. They are slower than normal salmon, and I actually think they are a little bit less difficult than Goldies, but where the Kochucks really become a potential problem is the fact that in Splatoon 3, the Kochucks, they seem to have increased the power of their frying pan, and suddenly you can go from literally being perfectly fine standing on the map to halfway across the map into the water, you're dead, goodbye. I don't know how the Kochucks enhanced their frying pans to deal immense amounts of knockback, but good God, if you get hit by one of those things, it is an absolute problem. It does over half your health in damage, which means if you took any extra chip damage, a Kochuck could potentially one-hit you. So you gotta be careful what they deal with. They're kind of big HP sponges. The best weapon that deals with them is high damaging weapons. Dynamo Roller can actually crush them. Dynamo Roller, in fact, can crush almost every single salmon in the game. And when you get something more specifically like the Geyser Wave or Mudmouth with the golden Mudmouth, if you got a Dynamo Roller in your party, you can just drop that Dynamo Roller down on the ground and like slowly walk just without barely moving, using a little bit of your ink, and you just crush everything in your path. It makes mincemeat of the Mudmouth wave, which is why Mudmouth, of course, is in the free tier. But Code Chucks can be a problem if they hit you, so they're going to be at the bottom of potential problems here. Next, we have the Snatcher. Now, of course, the Snatcher's in... This is an older picture of our Snatcher. This is our Splatoon 2 Snatcher. Snatchers in Splatoon 3, I think, are a little bit more annoying. I would not say they're a potential problem, but they are definitely a free salmon. Their only goal is to steal golden eggs. Now, unlike in Splatoon 2, where the Snatchers could only steal 3 golden eggs, these Snatchers, I believe, can hold up to 5 golden eggs, and they stack them on a little fly swatter in their little flying carts. So they made them a little bit harder to hit in their flying carts, but they're just kind of free overall. Next, of course, we have our Steelhead. Now, a lot of people don't like dealing with Steelheads, and personally, I don't really have too much of a problem dealing with Steelheads. Do I think Steelheads are easy to deal with if you've got the right weapons? Yes. I don't think the Steelheads are necessarily annoying unless they're protected by a Salmon lid, which could be a potential problem. But with the Steelhead in play, you definitely have to watch your back. In fact, I would think it's even above Grillers. Steelheads have a big insta-killing bomb if you're too close to it, so that is going to be a problem in its own right. You definitely got to watch your back when you have multiple Steelheads on the field, and they are going to be kind of a priority target for all chargers. Nice little salmonid overall. One of the first ones we were introduced to in Splatoon 2. Definitely got to watch your back around them, but definitely not as bad as big shots, which tend to stand further away. And what's something really funny about the Steelheads in Splatoon 3 is that if you sit on top of the fish stick and the Steelhead is targeting you, that Steelhead is just going to keep running up on the fish stick. It's going to start pole dancing on that fish stick, and it's not going to be able to throw a bomb, making it a completely even less of a threat until you jump off that fish stick. So not really a big deal in its own right. What is a big deal in its own right is, of course, the Steel Eel. Now, just without a doubt, the Steel Eels are annoying. They are absolutely annoying. You can have multiple of them come up at once. You can have the Steel Eels block other damage that you're doing on other salmonids, and the Steel Eels are so long that obviously getting around them is very tough. Being able to manipulate a Steel Eel into moving in the right direction is the most important thing, but it's really dangerous when 3 Steel Eels come up out of the water in later waves on higher difficulties at the same time, and you can't even hit the tail end of the first one until you kill the third one. So you have to work backwards, and they take up so much space, they paint so much, they 2-tap you, and, well, they have a decent amount of knockback as well. But bear in mind, the one thing that can go through the Steel Eel flutter walls is golden eggs. With that new throwing mechanic, you can throw eggs through Steel Eels, making them a little bit less annoying. But good God, do not get cornered by these things. Do not get set on an area that's a dead end with these things. Make sure you have an escape route on Steel Eels. They are super annoying, especially when there's multiple of them. And when you're trying to deal with the Salmon lid and a Steel Eel comes up under that Salmon lid and it's not its tail, they're even more annoying because that Steel Eel will not die until that Salmon lid hits the tail end or you hit the tail end of the Steel Eel. I mean, this one, this salmon here, the fucking fly fish, needs no introduction to what I'm about to do. Fly fish, fuck you. Seriously, I do not understand why the devs thought it was a good idea. Oh, let's bring Tentamissiles back. It's gonna be great. Everyone will have fun. And then you remember the fly fish exists. How about, you know, I don't know, maybe 10 different missiles targeting 14 different players. Oh, it does 30 damage of chip damage. Well, there's a bunch of salmonids. Oh, the fly fish sit back in the furthest spots, making them one of the most annoying salmons to deal with. Oh, I'm all the way back. Oh, in order to kill me, you either need explosure bombs, crab tanks, cannons, or a high resource that's just throwing 2 bombs into my baskets. Let me waste all my ink destroying 1 basket so I can die to Tentamissiles. But now we move on, of course, from the most annoying, one of the most annoying salmon in the game to the Moth. And honestly, the Moth is free, and to me, the Moth it's easier even than the Mothership. Moths, yes, they do require a high intensive resource in terms of your bomb, which takes 3/4 of your ink tank to deal with the Moth. However, the Moth's actual hitbox radius is relatively small, You're safe while you're booyah bombing under a maw. The maw's bite, I don't think, can reach you under booyah bomb, and you're armored through it. The maw, of course, is an insta-kill, but being able to just bring a maw close to the basket, drop a bomb in its mouth, it's free eggs, it's free experience, really easy salmon to deal with, probably one of the easiest salmon to deal with, as well as the flipper flopper. What makes a flipper flopper more annoying than the maw is a flipper flopper, while it insta kills you if it drops, it's got a bigger AoE to cover, where the maw's AoE is super small, and you can see it by a floating bobber. Can you get the floating bobber lost in between everything else? Absolutely, but honestly, the maw is probably one of the easiest salmon to deal with, especially when you see a bunch of other salmon coming at you, because the maw is always only going to target one player, and yes, the maw can come up onto you on top of the fish stick, which I think is funny, because how does a creature that big come out on top of a fish stick? The maw is pretty free, and in fact, I would say, I take it back. It's harder than the Mothership, but I would say it's easier than the Mudmouth. I still think Flipper Flopper is a little bit stronger than the maw here. And of course, now we get to another one of the most hated salmonids in Splatoon 3, the Stinger. And also, kind of a similar situation with the Flyfish, although I don't have hate, or I have more hate for the Flyfish than I do the Stingers. The Stingers are still f***ing tier, because they spawn at the furthest points of the map. They have a Stingray, which we all know how fun Stingray was to deal with in Splatoon 2, especially when it was buffed. They target one player. They deal with your ink. They can do a lot of damage to you, and if no one deals with them quick enough, and they add up, then you have 3 lasers flying all over the place, and if you combine them with Flyfish, then oh my god, all hell breaks loose. They are the second worst salmonid in the game to deal with. They are definitely easier than the Flyfish to deal with, provided you send the right weapon to deal with the Stingers quick enough. In fact, a couple of great weapons that were added into Splatoon 3 that deal with the Stingers really well. The Tri-Stringer and the Reflux deal with Stingers really well. You can break like 3 or 4 pots at once on these guys, making them 2 shots. Blasters, if you put them in the center, it's a 1-shot. Inkjet. You can kind of use a lot of explosive weapons to deal with Stingers quickly. They're still pretty ridiculous though, considering their positioning, which shares very similar positioning to Flyfish, although Flyfish can move closer. Stingers aren't as annoying as Flyfish, I don't think. They still suck. I still hate them. They seem to have the same problem as Flyfish, where after you kill one, they multiply. It's like a Hydra. They never die, but, they're okay. They're okay. But still, f you, Stingers. We don't like you. In fact, I would say they're more annoying than the small fries, but I wouldn't quite say they're f you. Now that I really think about it, they're definitely the top of annoying. And last but certainly not least, we have the big boy, Chohozuna. The first of our king salmonids in Splatoon 3. And notice how I said the first, because we all know that salmonids with an S. The king salmonids, not king salmonid. It's king salmonids. Which means we're going to be getting more king salmonids as the game progresses. But in terms of Chohozuna, I don't think Chohozuna is that bad. However, I will put Chohozuna kind of in the best watch your back tier. Chohozuna can be a problem, and in fact, I'm going to put him at the top of the best watch your back tier, because Chohozuna is kind of a problem in his own right. Obviously, you have to deal with a lot of the other boss salmonids to kill Chohozuna quickly. If you got the right weapons, you can deal with Chohozuna really well. The biggest thing I can tell you about Chohozuna, deal with the immediate boss salmon around Chohozuna, but your weapons will actually do more damage to Chohozuna than the egg cannon. The egg cannons are good for, your egg cannon on your back is really good for burst damage against the king salmonids. However, weapons and specials like the crab tank, the booyah bomb, not so much the inkjet, the reef slider, all can deal bigger chunks of damage than a burst from the egg cannon, than like 3 golden egg bursts. Crab tank, in fact, without using the cannon on Crab tank's guns shred through Chohozuna. Booyah bomb can deal with Chohozuna as well, and honestly, weapons overall, shooting Chohozuna is a little bit better depending on the weapons. The weapon set in play. However, you definitely still have to watch your back at Chohozuna. He has a much bigger hitbox than people tend to think. He can block other boss salmonids as well. You definitely have to watch your back. Watch where Chohozuna is positioned, especially when you're with your teammates. And that's really about it. That's all you kind of need to know about Chohozuna. But he's definitely the top of B tier, at least for me. We're going to have to see what other boss salmonids they come out with. I might come back and revisit this list. But right now, I feel like this list kind of sits where it sits. I honestly don't think anything's too bad in this list, especially in the free tier. I mean, these guys are absolute jokes in the free tier here. But when it comes to the annoying tier and when it comes to the fly fish, I think they're, you know, where they're placed is well spoken for. Yeah, that's my salmon tier list for Splatoon 3's current salmon run. Let me know down in the comments below what your most hated salmon or boss salmon is as well. I'm interested to hear a lot of your replies on that, and I'm gonna guess a couple of you are gonna be saying stinger or fly fish because they are absolute pain. And thank you guys for watching the video as well. Of course, if you enjoyed what you just watched, do me a favor and hit that like button, as well as hitting that subscribe button. You guys have been giving me some incredible support recently, and I cannot thank you enough. I got more Splatoon 3 content on the way, as well as some other content from other games as well, so I hope you guys are looking forward to that. And of course, until then, this is CAJman777, signing off. Stay safe, everybody.